All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating topic: how our ancestors' absolute brutal fight for survival shaped not just our physical lifespans, but our deepest, most hardwired psychological needs for social connection. To understand how we got here, we're going to hit 5 key areas today: the fight for survival, the agricultural paradox, the modern lifespan boom, the threat of social death, and finally, our evolutionary brains. Section 1, the fight for survival. Physical threats in the ancient world. So let's start with those ancient physical threats, because for early humans, just staying alive was a massive daily struggle against predators and the elements. Now, looking at this timeline, you might actually assume early humans died incredibly young, right? Well, surprise, early species in the lower Paleolithic, like Homo habilis and Homo erectus, actually hit lifespans of 50 to 60 years. They managed this despite all the constant dangers. But it wasn't the same story for everyone. Neanderthals in the freezing Middle Paleolithic, dealing with harsh cold and fierce competition, averaged only about 29.4 years. This image of the classical Amazonian archer really nails that hunter-gatherer reality. I mean, humans were quite literally constantly exposed to physical trauma. Whether it was fighting off wild predators or hunting massive game with primitive tools like bows just to get some basic nutrition. Every single day was a physical test. Section 2, the agricultural paradox: how settling down cost us years. So you probably think that moving into farming communities and settling down made us safer, right? Actually, it kind of backfired initially. When humans transitioned to an agricultural lifestyle, our diets basically flipped overnight. We went from a really diverse intake of high fiber and lean meats to diets super heavy in sugar, sodium, and way lower in fiber. Plus, the Neolithic period brought about the domestication of animals. And sure, having early versions of dogs and cats around sounds great, but living in such close proximity to animal feces and stagnant water caused this massive spike in highly infectious diseases like malaria. Get this, because of those crazy new dietary deficits and rampant, newly introduced diseases, the estimated lifespan of a Neolithic farmer literally plummeted. We are talking a massive drop to an incredibly short 20 to 33 years. Settling down fundamentally shortened their lives. Section 3, the modern lifespan boom: conquering physical death. It actually took thousands of years for humanity to recover from that agricultural dip. It wasn't until Edward Jenner discovered the vaccine in 1796 and Alexander Fleming found penicillin in 1928 that we finally turned the tide against early physical death. You can see this modern medical triumph so clearly when you look globally. Take Turkey, for example. In the 1960s, life expectancy was just 51.7 years. But zoom ahead to 2019, it rocketed up to nearly 78 years. This rapid climb is a direct result of improved hygiene, antibiotics, and vaccines finally. And the crazy part is, this upward momentum isn't stopping anytime soon. Scientists actually project that in developed countries, our maximum lifespans will just keep pushing the boundaries of human aging throughout the entire 21st century. Today, people in places like Hong Kong and Japan are boasting average life expectancies of nearly 85 years, 84.9 to be exact. It's absolute living proof of our mastery over physical survival. We've largely engineered our way completely out of those environmental dangers that plagued our ancestors. But physical safety isn't the whole story. With predators kept at bay and diseases largely curable, we have to ask ourselves about a totally different kind of survival. What happens when the greatest threat isn't a predator, but your own tribe? Which brings us to Section 4, the threat of social death, the psychology of belonging. Let's flip the evolutionary coin and look at the absolute necessity of the social mind. So let's talk about ostracism, being excluded and ignored. For our hunter-gatherer ancestors, physical survival was entirely dependent on group cooperation. So being indefinitely ostracized from the group meant losing your access to shared food and protection. It was essentially a death sentence. Because of this, our brains evolved to view social exclusion as a literal, catastrophic threat to our existence. To prove how deeply this runs, researchers asked people to recall their most painful memories. And honestly, this is wild. Participants recalled the betrayal of being mocked in middle school as causing just as much, if not way more, lingering agony than a physically shattered ankle. While physical pain eventually fades from memory, social pain can be vividly re-experienced years later just by thinking about it. The biology behind that pain is just mind-blowing. This neurological overlap is nature's alarm system. Your brain processes getting left out of a group using the exact same region, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, that it uses to process a physical injury. It literally hurts to be ignored. And because those pathways overlap, taking an over-the-counter painkiller can actually reduce the emotional sting of social rejection. I mean, how crazy is that? Researchers study this using the cognitive approach, how we consciously think, and the ethological approach, our deep animal instincts. Through what's known as error management theory, they discovered that we're hardwired with an over-detection bias for ostracism. Think about it. Falsely sensing a social threat, like assuming your friend is mad at you when they really aren't, is so much safer for your long-term survival than missing a real cue that you're about to be kicked out of the tribe. Moving to our final section, Section 5, our evolutionary brains, navigating modern social minefields. Let's see how these deeply ingrained ancient alarm systems fire off in our everyday lives. Because this ostracism detection system is so incredibly sensitive, it doesn't take an outright banishment to make us panic. Even minimal cues, like someone avoiding eye contact or a simple lag in a texting conversation, make us feel a profound loss of relational value. Literally, your ancient brain treats a delayed text message like a roaring lion in the brush. We see this play out constantly in relationships too. Partners sometimes weaponize this evolutionary pain through the silent treatment, which is a really harsh, punitive tactic. It completely contrasts with pro-social bonding behaviors like whispering sweet nothings, which we use to solidify our connections and signal safety to each other. When we feel ostracized, our immediate evolutionary response is to seek re-inclusion. We might start mimicking others or aggressively trying to find new groups to join. But if that isolation becomes chronic, the results are devastating. It leads to deep depression and physiological stress. Scientists have even observed this exact same learned helplessness and cardiac dysfunction in socially isolated prairie voles. This quote really hits the nail on the head. Indefinite ostracism has been described as social death for tribal and ancestral humans because it severed social connections necessary for survival. Whether you are a Paleolithic hunter braving the Ice Age or a modern office worker navigating corporate politics, your brain fundamentally treats human connection as a literal matter of life and death. So as we wrap up this explainer, I'll leave you with this to ponder. Knowing that a simple delayed text message lights up the exact same part of your brain as a physical injury, how are the ghosts of our ancestors' brutal fight for survival still actively shaping every single social interaction you have today? Understanding the science of survival might just be the key to truly understanding yourself. Thanks for joining me today.